Okay, everyone. I think everyone needs to cool it with the genocidal rhetoric. I have a lot of distaste for people who are blind ideologues and who say things that are so unbelievably stupid, it's ridiculous. For example, everyone has seen Michael Knowles talk about eradicating transgenderism.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
If you are someone who, like me, is very much against the extreme degeneracy on the far left, you should be able to call out individual acts of garbage and disgust without reverting to broad, sweeping, group-based rhetoric around, well, we're going to eradicate transgenderism rather than we're going to eradicate the disease that has infected the mind of those individuals pushing for the specific disgusting things that we see. It's exactly the same as people who say we should eradicate whiteness. It's like, oh, that's a convenient excuse to say, oh, well, I'm not talking about killing white people. But you sure are harping on the rhetoric that you know speaks to the most base emotions in those people that would advocate for that type of stuff. It's the same thing with the eradicate transgenderism. And then you have someone like this woman, Alice Capelle, or Capelle, or whatever, who is just the left-wing equivalent of this irresponsible ideologue who likes to say things publicly that are provocative, that are genuinely harmful in that they harm the state of the discourse, which inevitably is what our society is founded upon, because if the discourse goes off the rails, then society goes off the rails. And she says something like this.
So to conclude, in his book titled Parasites, French sociologist Nicolas Framont turned trickle-down economics upside down by showing that the upper classes of society actually cost us a lot of money and don't pay a lot of taxes in return in comparison to working classes and middle classes. They are the real parasites. So Framont says it's urgent that we recreate a strong class consciousness, that we continue to use terms like the rich, the bourgeois, the parasite class, that we point a finger at them to materialize their existence. But he also recommends that we go beyond class consciousness to create class trust, so that we stop seeing the ultra-rich as gurus and reject our own class identity in the process. The ultra-rich don't add much value to society. They accumulate money that they spend in ways that mostly benefit those already on top. Also, they are simply not compatible with the society we must create to save our planet. They are the parasite class. And what do we do to annoying parasites? That's it for today. Thank you for watching.
What kind of creepy sociopathic behavior is that? Like, you laid out a genuinely, I would say somewhat compelling intellectual case for why the upper class, why the 1% or whatever, poses a problem, why society is structured in such a way that cannot sustain itself if the 1% continue to operate in the way that they do. And your moral injunction to people is to call them parasites. And then what kind of creepy metaphor is that? Well, what do we do with parasites? We kill them? That's sociopathic. Now, the tempering part of this is that I think that Alice Capelle, and I've watched some of her videos, this type of ideology, this type of calling the 1% or whatever the parasite class, it's an aesthetic, right? It's not really about fomenting revolution. You know, I'm sure she goes out for dinner and drinks with her friends and all that stuff. It's like she doesn't actually want or she would not benefit in any way from a genuine bloody revolution. But she does this as an aesthetic because people who are intelligent and sort of predisposed to ideas and the aesthetics of ideas, they tend to be left-wing and they tend to resonate with this kind of language and stuff. And so it's irresponsible. And, you know, push came to shove, everyone has darkness within them. And would I believe that Alice would be out there advocating for the guillotine? I don't know. She certainly implied that here, unless she was basically saying, this whole video is a joke. I don't actually mean we should wipe out the parasites. I think she believes that because, you know, the earth will collapse in climate crisis if we don't. But this is just childish. And, you know, one of the things that's so pathetic, and I think the word is pathetic, is that there is so much potential agreement that could exist that could be used against the actual individual parasites. Because I think we shouldn't use dehumanizing language, but we should certainly not refer to entire classes or groups of people. Individuals can be regarded as obviously bad actors. Like, for example, Nancy Pelosi, who trades stocks. That she legislates on. That's clear parasitism behavior. It's not a class, it's a person. I guarantee you that Alice Capelle and Michael Knowles would both totally agree on hardcore legislation preventing politicians from trading stocks that they're going to legislate on. That's a real win that could occur as a function of people like Alice Capelle and Michael Knowles coming together to unite against the actual individuals who are the perpetrators. But instead, because they're both ideologues who are more interested in appealing to their audience and they are actually enacting any change, they're going to use this irresponsible language that they know plays well with their base. I think Alice Capelle is, again, just doing this for an aesthetic. I don't really buy into any belief that she has any real influence of any kind. People are more interested in hearing these ideas and then go drinking fancy coffee and talking about it, which is fine. But then someone like Michael Knowles, who has a much bigger influence and speaks to the more reactionary part of people, which I think is more dangerous fundamentally, that's a real threat. Think about, here's a socialist, and then Michael Knowles is a Christian and all those people. It's like, do you know how much common ground exists between socialists and Christians in that both are very against the obvious dangers of consumerism and obsessing about our phones and all that stuff? It's like everyone would resonate with that. You could so easily create a genuinely diverse ideological camp that could push for important single wins policy-wise, if not, some broader philosophy. You don't need to get everyone together under the same banner philosophically to get people to vote on important issues together, like stopping Congress people from trading stocks or whatever. And this is what, it bothers me, right? It's genuinely disappointing to see people being irresponsible in the way that they are, like Alice Capelle, like Michael Knowles. And if people just calm down and said, you know what, this is kind of cringy, this is kind of freakish, that we're letting the genuine individual parasites, maybe the ones who are at the World Economic Forum, they are individuals who should be held accountable for their individual beliefs and advocacy of certain policies. But to play these dumbass group identity politics games where we just label an entire group of people, an entire class of people, or an entire people who have a particular mental illness or mental condition, that's so pathetic and weak, and it's exactly what the genuine people who need to be held accountable and need to be pushed back against, exactly what they want. And it's just a cool aesthetic to their audiences, and I'm getting really sick of it. So I think we should find the common ground and fight for that, and then fight off anyone who tries to sow further division where there could be unity in places where it needs to be. And I'm not saying Michael Knowles and Alice Capelle need to agree on everything, but they should agree on some things to the point where things can get done. And then once the real individuals who are causing problems are gone, then we can duke it out and fight it out like the Starks and Lannisters. Once the Night King is gone, then we can go back to the real fighting. But the real threat is the Night King. So that's my opinion. And hopefully, people grow out of the shit ASAP, because we're rapidly going down the shitter. So, good luck and Godspeed.